What does it mean when a property goes to auction?
It's because they can't handle it, so they end up paying.
That's right. The fact that the number of auctions is increasing means that the South Korean real estate market is in a very precarious situation now. If you look at it that way, there are a lot of areas where problems like reverse mortgage or John's fraud can occur. To make money, please, don't look for such opportunities with bloodshot eyes, just to make money. I hope you check first whether the decisions you are making now are the wrong ones, and then look for opportunities. Those people's lives have probably hit rock bottom right now.
Hello, nice to meet you. I'm Dr. Kim from Richgo. Yes, hello, nice to meet you. I'm Kim Ki-hyun from Richgo. Recently, there have been reports that the number of apartments going to auction in the market is skyrocketing. It seems that the number of apartment auctions in Seoul has hit a 9-year high. With high interest rates, it's becoming harder to pay off loans, so people are putting their homes up for sale. But there are more properties piling up that aren't getting bids. So today, we're going to talk about the biggest auction issues we've ever seen. Just how many are we talking about? I think we should talk about the biggest auction issues we've ever seen. How many are we talking about?
First, if you go into the Richgo app and check the auction case data, you'll find a section for auctions there. If you click on auctions and then sales statistics, you can see all the statistics there for free. So I have organized this information, and this shows the total number of auction cases right now. It doesn't discriminate against properties, so it's almost around 19,000 cases now. 19,000 cases.
So how much has this increased compared to before?
If you look at this as a bar graph, right? This is the number of properties going to auction every month. So I thought it would decrease a bit, but in October, number of auctions skyrocketed to an all-time high. And as you can see, the number of auctions has never been this high since 2006. Right now in South Korea, what does it mean when a property goes to auction?
It's because they can't handle it anymore, right?
That's right. For example, if I bought a property for 1 billion won and took out a loan for 600 million won, if the collateral value drops below that, or if I have other debts besides this property, then those debts could lead to a situation where, so properties are getting seized like this, and that's how they end up going to auction. The fact that the number of auctions is increasing means that the real estate market in South Korea is in a very precarious state. The last time we saw such a high number of auctions was during the card crisis and the financial crisis, but right now there isn't any specific crisis happening.
On the surface, there doesn't seem to be anything obvious. Because people are struggling financially and can't pay back their loan interest, that's likely what's causing this. But the issues aren't as big as the ones we've seen before, right?
That's right.
But there are a lot coming out.
I'll talk about this later. A lot of people are under the impression that interest rates have risen dramatically, but that's not really the case. You see, I majored in math in college. I probably need to explain this clearly in mathematical terms. You probably haven't heard much about this. And if you look at this by the number of auctions, this is for apartments. But if you look at it, there aren't that many apartments. After the interest rate spike, the number of apartment auctions is really high, right? But right now, the number of apartment auctions nationwide is only about $4,000 as of October. There aren't that many, but if you look at the trend, this is for office tels. Actually, office tels haven't really gone to auction much until now. But recently, what's happening? They've been increasing like crazy. The office tel market is in a really dangerous spot because the sale prices and the rental prices are too closely tied together. They're too close. Because of that, there are a lot of potential issues like reverse rent situations or rental scams. And for real estate agents, they really need to check the actual sale prices and rental prices of office tels, but they often don't do that. It's just inconvenient. And for real estate agents, they really need to check the actual sale prices and rental prices of office tels, but they often don't do that. It's inconvenient. So if you go into our Richgo platform, you can access the apartments here. So besides the apartment complex, there's also the office tel data. Then you'll see all the office tel data laid out. So you can see all the office tel data from anywhere in the country. So if you go into the office tel section, you can see all the sales, rentals, monthly rents, and listings for these office tels. That's why. So if you're buying or renting through the OP system or anything like that, you definitely need to go into Richgo, click on OP, and get a sense of the prices from the data. And where else? Is there a lot? Well, single-family homes, multifamily homes, and row houses, I've combined these three. So this is about 4,700 cases. If you look at this, the number of auctions is still going up, right? Now, who else is shedding tears? It's our property owners that many people have envied. Now take a look. This is the trend of commercial real estate. Auctions. What do you think? Isn't it amazing? It's incredible right now.
At one point, investing in small buildings became a trend, and many people invested in commercial buildings. I guess those folks are probably putting a lot of them up for sale now.
Yes, that's right. So this isn't something I'm putting out there. It's just that it goes to the auction market, regardless of my will. Creditors auction them off. In 2020, 2021, discussions on property and small building owners were prevalent. Now high interest rates force auctions.
There were tons of books coming out about small buildings. What happened?
Right now, they can't withstand the high interest rates, and they're all coming out for auction like this. The problem is, we're still quite far from a resolution. You guys really need to be careful with these auctions. If you jump in recklessly or buy real estate without knowing what you're doing, you could really lose everything. We're still quite far from a resolution. You guys really need to be careful with these auctions. If you jump in recklessly or buy real estate the wrong way, you could seriously lose everything. So that's why I'm saying please don't go around with your eyes wide open, desperately trying to find opportunities just to make money. First, make sure to check if the decisions you're making right now are the right ones. I hope you find opportunities after that. Isn't it? All of this is coming to auction because of bad decisions. But what did most experts say back in 2020 and 2021? Everyone was going crazy over real estate, buying up properties like crazy because of the historically low interest rates. But what is the result of that now? Now they can't hold on anymore and are coming out for auction. If real estate goes to auction, what will happen to my life and my family's life? It's like falling into a pit in one shot. These things are happening right now. The same goes for land. The number of land auctions is continuously increasing. There are currently 5,300 land auctions. There are currently 2,300 commercial real estate properties. For land, there are 5,300, which is more than double.
There are more land auctions.
Yes. So there are a lot of lands coming out for auction right now. So the fact that there are more auctions in the real estate market is a very dangerous sign. This is definitely not a signal that can come from a major upward trend. So I think it's really important to keep that in mind. And the next thing I want to talk about is that one of the advantages of auctions is the potential to buy things at a lower price. Yes, that's right. But for example, if I thought the first floor was the ground floor, but there are actually 5 or 10 basement levels, what happens if I win the bid at the price of the second basement level while I'm on the first basement level? What happens then? Are we heading for a downfall? But the important thing is that there are many great auction experts out there, but they are not experts in forecasting trends or prices. Their ability to forecast what will happen is weak. Just like I'm not an expert in auctions. They are just auction specialists. But right now, with so many auction cases increasing, I do say it's an opportunity. Right now, it's not. Right now, the real opportunity is still a year to a year and a half away. Invest without your own money in undervalued areas. Auctions are risky now. A downturn is expected in 2025. So be cautious. So right now you can look into undervalued areas and promising regions. But if that's not the case, no matter how much you want to participate in auctions, it's really not the time to do so. It's extremely risky. I'm telling you, a super downturn cycle is coming in 2025, and it's really dangerous. You all need to keep this in mind. If you make a mistake and buy now, you could find yourself back in auctions in 2 or 3 years. So, if you look at this article, again, you'll see that the number of apartment auctions is at its highest since 2020. We're talking about this right now, and since there are a lot of apartments in the metropolitan area, increase has been significant there. This is what you're talking about, and what is this? It's the tears of the lotus root. Interest rates were low. So many people were trying to buy their own homes back then, but there were just too many of them. In the end, that turned out to be a bad move, right? That's right. So what happens is that most real estate experts and regular folks only look at the present, but we need to consider the future situation as well. And when it comes to investing, there have to be enough fools who are willing to pay more than what I bought it for. That's how you succeed. But how many were there after 2020 and 2021? That was pretty much the peak frenzy, wasn't it? But how many were there after 2020 and 2021? That was pretty much the peak frenzy, wasn't it? Especially in the metropolitan area. So, As you can see, here, the winning bid rate keeps going up because until recently, the atmosphere in the real estate market was pretty good. As a result, the winning bid rate has risen to 97% compared to the appraised value. And while there are a lot of auction items piling up, not many of them are actually getting sold.
It's really interesting. There are a lot of auctions. There are a lot of cases, but the winning bids are high. But there aren't many properties that are actually getting sold. At least the properties that are getting sold are being auctioned off at high prices.
That's right. That's mainly focused on apartments. Because right now, the only good thing in the real estate market is apartments. That's right, especially apartments in Seoul or surrounding areas.
Popular areas.
Yes. The other areas, the rest of the real estate, it's all about desire. Now, only certain areas have the right to sell pre-sale rights, but a lot of the other areas are really not doing well.
On the contrary, because of this, areas like Gangnam and other popular regions, like Yongsan, keep rising, while other areas are declining. So, with more auction items piling up and fewer transactions happening, the polarization is getting worse. And there's ongoing concern that it will get even worse. Polarization has definitely intensified so far. It's going to get worse.
No, it's over now. The polarization is over, but it was always there. But why were areas like Gangnam's 3 districts so good? You didn't give me a loan during the Corona period. If they had given out loans back then, especially for those who went all in, Gangnam and Songpa would have been completely wrecked. But starting in 2022, they began giving out loans, right? In 2022, 2023, and 2024, those who took out loans and bought at the peak, especially those who bought recently, are really at risk. Of course, if you had your own money and were comfortably using about 70 to 80% of your own funds to take out a loan, then there wouldn't be a problem. There shouldn't be any problems. But there are a lot of people who didn't do that. Some people are even taking out personal loans to buy houses. So what's going on with that? Now, it's all going to crash in one go. You really need to be very careful. So the reason for this is that they couldn't handle the interest. This is a big reason. And now, since the domestic market isn't doing well, there are cases where businesses or self-employed people go under because of that. So I'm going to try to analyze the reasons behind this properly. Now, if you look here, the pink line represents South Korea's base interest rate. Next, the blue line represents the US base interest rate. And one thing is clear, the base interest rate and the market interest rate don't move together. Yes, recently the US lowered its base interest rate, but market interest rates actually went up. But recently, in the big trend, interest rates have risen very sharply, and this change is quite significant. This change in interest rates that should have unfolded over 30 years has happened in just 1 or 2 years. I'm going to clearly show you this with data. Let me emphasize again, during the bubble period, when everyone was going crazy, whether it was stocks, real estate, or cryptocurrencies, if you bought any investment asset, during that time when everyone was excited, you might be fine at first. But what happens in 2 or 3 years? There's a very high possibility that it could fall into a pit. This is something that everyone in the investment group commonly talks about. I really hope you keep that in mind. So, back in my university days, I went back to the math department, and I thought the charts looked really cool. At one point, I represented my school in a math competition. In high school, and when I got into college, I received a scholarship. That's something to brag about, right? I was just good at math. But if you look here, there's a regular chart and log chart. The regular chart shows the absolute change. For example, 101 became 201. How many times has it increased? It's doubled. That's right. 10,001 became 20,001. It's doubled. But when 101 becomes 201, this is how the change looks. And 10,001 becomes 20,001, the change looks like this. That's right. So it looks like it's increasing exponentially. But what's really important, it's important to look at absolute changes, but you need to view this on a log chart in terms of ratios. A lot of people are really mistaken about something. I know that Gangnam and Seocho have amazing returns, but we talked about this on the show not too long ago. If you look at the actual data, that's not the case. Why? When you look at the returns, the growth rate shows that 1 billion won becomes 2 billion won, and 2 billion won becomes 4 billion won. So the amounts are really huge. But what is this? When you look at it in terms of ratios, That's not the case. So, when you look at regular chart, represented as a log chart showing proportional changes, it looks like this. Like this. So, I'm going to talk about this. But when you look at it, on a regular chart, there's a bit of an optical illusion. So this isn't about short time series data. It's about looking at very long periods like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, or even 100 years. In these cases, using a log chart gives you a much more accurate understanding of the changes compared to a regular chart. When you look at a regular chart, what you see is that recent changes look much bigger. The changes in past values, small. So a lot of people talk about stocks and real estate using regular charts. Right. Oh, if you hold it, it just keeps going up.
I'm holding on. I'm holding on too. I was being fooled.
Why? Back in the day, for example, this is it. When the apartment price was 100 million won, dropped to 50 million won. But now it's 2 billion won. So, does it look big when it drops from 100 million to 50 million won? On a regular chart, looks tiny, looks small. 2 billion won halving is big. But if a 2 billion won apartment changed to 1 billion won, that would be a huge deal. It would be a big deal, right? What's important? Considering the decline rate at that time, this is a very difficult story to tell in reality. Please, when it comes to stocks or real estate, whether it's long-term investment for 10 years, 20 years, or even 3 years, I really hope you understand this properly and approach it with that in mind. And another optical illusion with regular charts is that the price increase of high-end apartments in Gangnam looks bigger compared to regional apartments. Why? Because the absolute amounts are larger, just like we saw in the graph earlier. But when you look at actual investment returns, there have been many times when Gangnam has provided much higher returns.
Oh, regions.
Yes. There have been many times when the investment returns in the regions were much better than in places like Gangnam. So because the absolute amounts in Gangnam are large, many people pay attention to it. But in reality, when you look at the returns, it's not the same. Now this time, let me show you the chart of the US 10-year Treasury bond, which determines interest rates around the world. So, if you look at it, it has been fluctuating down for several decades, then fluctuating up for several decades, then fluctuating down again for several decades. And now, it's been going up for a few years. So this chart goes back about 120 years. 120 years. So, during this 120-year period, how often has the interest rate been below about 2.5%? There was almost none. There was almost none. Especially when it was below 2%, it was almost non-existent. What does that mean? It's something that happened for just a very brief moment in 120 years, almost never. What is this? It was a time that was very rarely sustained. But what's going on here? Everyone is being gaslit. You can only remember this much, right? During the time when interest rates were low, and basically, you can see that the rates were fluctuating and going up here as well. What time is this? It was a time of geopolitical conflicts. It's hard to invest. Since interest rates keep going up, the loan interest goes up, which makes buying real estate and starting a business harder. Also, it's getting harder for companies to invest in this. So this was a difficult time to invest. And so, fluctuating like this, the interest rates went down for several decades. From the early 1980s until 2021, for over 40 years. So what does that mean? It was a really good time to invest in stocks and real estate. And during this time, globalization was progressing and the whole world was getting along well with each other. So, interest rates are going down. But what about now? The geopolitical conflicts getting more serious. Then there's the issue of climate change. It's not easy for interest rates to stabilize. Interest rates might fluctuate. Looking ahead to the next 5, 10, or even 20 years, interest rates might keep fluctuating and could continue to rise. I wonder how many people managing their assets are actually thinking about this. I don't think there will be many. There are hardly any. Regular people don't even think about it. Why? People can only remember the last few years. But what about now? The whole world has been fluctuating over a cycle of several decades, about 40 years going up and down. And if you look at it, there's a big cycle, right? It went down, then up, then down. Now it's going up. But this is regular chart. It's a regular chart. But if I change this to a log chart, you'll probably be surprised when you apply that ratio. You'll be really surprised. This is what it looks like on a log chart. Take a good look at this chart during this period. At other times, it's pretty much the same. But at that time, it was all there was. So how's the drop looking right now? It looks like it dropped a lot. It looks like it dropped a lot. So what does that mean? With interest rates dropping like crazy, what does that mean? That's why the asset market ended up having the biggest bubble in history. On top of that, it released liquidity. But how about this? It shot up crazy. Look at this drop. Look, this drop.
It's a sharp drop and a rapid rise in a short period. So what I'm saying is this period, especially during COVID, is what I'm talking about.
Can you see in this chart how abnormally low interest rates have been over the past 120 years? It was a completely abnormal time. But what's happening? People are talking about interest rate cuts like it's nothing. Right now, so many people are completely clueless about the world, and they're being totally gaslit by these low interest rates. So back then, it was an incredibly easy environment for investing. But what's happening now? We're already entering an environment where investing is becoming difficult. I'm showing you the same ratio. This drop and this drop are the same. Back then, interest rates dropped from about 3% down to here. What is this? It dropped from about 3% down to 0.33. And then it started to rise like this. This has gone up almost 10 times, right? Right, 9 times, 10 times. But if the current interest rate level is around 3% and it goes up by 9 times or 10 times, that would be 27% or 30%. So if the interest rate goes up from 3% to 27%, what do you think will happen? So what do you think will happen?
What do you think will happen?
It would be a total mess for real. You have a loan, right? Isn't your heart racing right now?
Yes, exactly. Indeed.
What does this shock mean? During COVID, interest rates hit rock bottom. So what does that mean? Auctions are going absolutely crazy right now. And that's why small business owners are struggling. Companies are struggling. Everyone is having a tough time. Why? Originally, these kinds of changes happen over time. Look at this. These interest rate changes that usually happen over several decades, like 30 or 40 years, have gone up and down in just a few years. This is such a huge volatility. We've seen the biggest interest rate volatility in history. And because of this, what's happening now? Auctions are increasing like crazy. It's still not over.
On one hand, there were people who were hoping that labor prices would rise again like they did during COVID. But looking at the log chart now, that was an absurd interest rate once again. And actually, this kind of data.
In my VIP membership or in the paid lectures I offer, you guys shouldn't be under any illusions. On YouTube, I really only talk about the basics. I'm not going into very detailed discussions, but if you're really interested, later I'll be promoting a forecast lecture on December 21st. At that time, I'll be giving a lecture on the 2025 real estate market outlook with Aileen. It would be great if you could sign up and join us. To summarize everything, looking at the log chart, you can see that we've experienced the biggest interest rate fluctuations in history, right? I think it would be great if you could sign up and join together. So, to summarize everything, do you understand that we've seen the biggest interest rate fluctuations in history when you look at the log chart? Is that okay?
I was a bit surprised. I didn't know such a difference.
I didn't know that either. I never thought trying a log chart either. But when I looked at the log chart, I started thinking, why didn't I invest during COVID? That was really the best opportunity. I wish I could go back in time, like in a time machine. So, because of these drastic interest rate changes, interest rates are so low that the burden of interest has become really small. And that's why people are investing like crazy. That's how it was. So, if you look at it in terms of ratios, the interest rate changes that would normally happen over 30 years have occurred in just about 2 years. That's why auction listings are increasing the most in 20 years. Now, the problem is that in 2025, the third phase of the stress DSR will be implemented, and right now, mid-range interest rates are becoming entrenched. A lot of people shouldn't be under any illusions about this. What did everyone say at the end of last year and the beginning of this year? Did interest rates go down, like the US rates? Did they lower the rates? Did they lower the loan interest rates? No, they only lowered the deposit rates. Loan interest rates actually went up. You guys, you shouldn't be thinking like that. Right now, mid-range interest rates are completely entrenched. Consumer spending is at an all-time low, and we're expecting a very dangerous situation due to the economic recession. But so far, there hasn't been any external shock. When is the Korean economy especially at risk? It's when an external shock comes. Yes, right now there hasn't been any external shock yet. Right now Korea is just sitting down with its legs, giving out. But if an external shock, like in 2008 or 1997 happens in this situation, then it will really be a big problem. Then real estate prices would drop dramatically. So what will happen to the auctions? Right now, auctions are happening because of the shock from high interest rates and rate hikes. But what if a serious economic recession comes as an external shock? We might be seeing the worst auction items in history. So what I want to say is this. I'm saying don't rush into auctions just because the prices seem low right now. Right now, people involved in auctions are saying that since there are a lot of auction cases, it's time to take advantage of the situation. But while trying to take advantage, they might end up sinking instead. You need to wait a bit longer for the right time to take advantage. You need to wait a bit longer. And think about why people are considering auctions like this. Right now, there are a lot of people putting their properties up for auction who bought them in 2020. If we were to interview those people, what do you think they would say? Their lives have probably completely fallen apart. If they could go back to that time, what do you think they would want to tell us? If we talk about this, what do you think they would say? They would probably say not to buy. Invest in stocks.
Invest in stock?
Stocks are actually better because with stocks you might just lose half, but with auctions, everything can just disappear, leaving you with nothing but debt.
You might be talking and laughing, but there are probably a lot of people who are really struggling emotionally.
Of course, but still isn't over. Really, a lot of people have been saying that real estate prices are still going up because the government is supporting it, and the transaction volume has increased a lot. There are so many people who have been holding on to their properties for a long time. But I'm really worried about these people. The benefits from newborn special provisions or special mortgage materials don't last a lifetime. It only lasts for 5 years. So, you bought it by stretching your finances, right? Right now, the interest rates have gone down because of the benefits. But what do you think will happen if there's a shock like this? Do you think you can hold on? I can see all of this so clearly, and it really makes me feel sad. So, I tried my best to prevent such people from happening, and I think I got a sore throat again. It seems like my voice is gaining a bit of strength again while I'm broadcasting today.
I think a lot of people are feeling quite frustrated. The current economic situation and things that. Today was a bit of a heavy topic. I think you've provided some detailed insights into the trends in the auction market and the future of the real estate market through data, which will probably be helpful for a lot of people. I'll wrap up today's video. Thank you.